The announcement comes from the US State Department, and it finds that Moscow did use a nerve agent against the former Russian agent Sergei Skripal and his daughter Yulia in England. It quotes an old law from 1991 about chemical and biological weapons, saying that the Russian government used them in violation of international law, or that it used them against its own nationals. The sanctions that are going to be put in place now, well, it's going to be things like exports of technological equipment that's sensitive to national security. It's thought that licenses for those sort of exports will be stopped. And one official says that this could be worth hundreds of millions of dollars to the Russian economy. There's a second batch that would be due within 90 days, unless the Russians give reliable assurances that they'll stop these sort of activities. So really this looks like it could get more serious. Why now? Because remember that in March, Russia did expel dozens of diplomats in solidarity with the UK, but it stopped short of saying that this was a violation of international law on chemical weapons. So the UK government's welcomed this move, saying this is a very strong international response against the Russians. Remember that the US already has sanctions imposed on Russia for its activities in Ukraine and for election interference.
I mean, what we've seen recently also is that Trump, is on friendly terms with Putin. So these sanctions, would it mean he is taking a tougher line now, or?
Now, this is where it gets interesting, because the announcement comes from the Department of State. It's been signed off by the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo. There's been pressure behind the scenes, notably from Republicans, on Donald Trump to take a firmer stance. They've been pushing him to determine whether there is this violation of international law, because that then triggers these automatic sanctions. What we can see is there is certainly a very different stance from, on the one hand, the Department of State, the CIA, Congress, who are taking a very firm stance against Russia, seeing Russia as an adversary, saying this is an attack on the soil of an ally. People were hurt. They suspect that Vladimir Putin is behind activities like this and think that Russia is out there trying to disrupt the global order. And on the other hand, you've got Donald Trump, who apparently seems reluctant to say a word against Vladimir Putin on the Russians, always talking about better relations. That summit in Helsinki recently, which was seen as an embarrassment even by Republicans. So this conciliatory approach, we can say, is still going on, because there's a key ally of Donald Trump, Senator Rand Paul, who's been in Russia this week and has tweeted that he's delivered a letter to the Kremlin, again talking about this conciliatory approach, about improving dialogue and about resuming cultural exchanges, talk of further engagement. It seems that the administration is sort of divided in its attitude to Russia.